Continuing our conversation about the animation preview. Um, I had rendered it in only 40 frames, not a big deal, flies by pretty quick. If I uncheck this frames per second, I can scroll through my animation preview every second frame. Okay? Now, I can also turn on the frame number, which is up here as black, but I can make it white. Boy, you can't really see that, can you? I don't know if you can see that right in there. Let's see if I can get you a better view of it. I don't know, maybe something like that. Okay, right here. Okay. What that does is it tells you what keyframe you are currently on as you navigate through here. All right, so it's a little something that's very helpful. Now here, if I click this back on, I'll get back into my movement. It's kind of weird. There is no start and stop button. Your start and stop is right here, okay? But that's just a little idiosyncrasy of this particular preview, but that's the way it is. Now, I do have the option here of knocking this down, or I can just type the number. And let's say I want to do 12 frames per second. All right, and restart it again. All right, there's my 12. Yeah, okay, there we go. All right, there's 1 frame per second. In reality, it's 2 frames per second because I rendered on the preview an nth frame of 2. So this is 2 frames per second. I'm viewing every other frame. So that is a good way to be able to kind of sense if your navigation is on track. Then of course I can bump that up, and I can say, look, I'm going to make an animation, and I want it to be 30 frames per second. All right, there's my 30 frames per second. Now that's pretty fast. Now you just start doing some math, and I'm gonna get into this math a little later on, but I want you just to kind of be aware of something here. This is what 30 frames per second looks like. And I have 40 frames in my entire animation, well, so far anyway. That's far too fast for a real life scenario. So if I didn't make enough subframes, all right, if I didn't make enough, and I want to have a video running at 30 frames per second, that's what I get. I'm trying to get all 40 frames to run at 30 frames per second. That's not going to work. The other thing that won't work is if I get into my video editor and I say, oh geez, I want that to be a little slower. I want whoa. So now you code up your video editor to give you 10 frames per second because that's the speed you want for your animation. That's not going to look good at all. That's going to be jumpy and jittery, and it's going to look horrible. So this preview feature is doing more than just showing you how your movement occurs. It's actually helping you determine the speed of your movement through your environment. So if I wanted a, okay, let's do this. Okay, I don't want to get in too deep too soon now, but let's just say that I wanted an animation that, let me get my stylus here. Okay, I want an animation that will go for 30 seconds. 30 seconds. All right, and And I'm going to run this at 30 frames per second. All right, so what is that? I need 600 frames. Okay, I need 600 frames to get a 30-second animation at 30 frames per second. Is that right? 3 times 3? No, 900. 900. 3 times 3. Okay. Now, if I wanted a 30-second animation at 60 frames per second, you see, so or if I wanted a 300 second at 60 frames per second, I think you get the idea. The number of frames that I have to make has much to do with the length of my video and the frames per second. So this preview here is giving me a sense as for the speed of my animation, and is basically telling me that I want a lot more subframes than 30, because that's just too fast. All right, but we're going to get back into that. That's just one of the things you kind of pay attention to when you're setting up and you're keyframing your animation. This thing right here, what this preview thing will do is make an GIF. A very low resolution, not very good. It's an animated GIF file. Kind of old school. You don't really see many of them around anymore. You might see them as avatars in these discussion groups. They're very, very small files with a very basic animation that happens. It's a small footprint animation. I found it that really doesn't do me any good. There's a little trick that I use in order to capture this preview that I want to show you later on. Further down the road is kind of more advanced. But I do want you to understand something, that as soon as you exit this, you're not going back. You have to re-render the whole preview again. This thing doesn't save anywhere other than this GIF. And if you lose this, you lose it. So if I want a real quick and fast and inaccurate preview, I can check this on, and now I can hit the preview. And as you can see, compared to the last time that we ran the preview, I have an ultra low resolution. Again, that preview is really only there to help me understand the movement through the scene. I don't really care if it's blocky, and I don't really care if it's not rendered well. I don't really care, because all I really care about is sensing two things. I want to know how fast I'm moving through the environment. That is the keyframes. The subframes between the keyframes, and the sense of motion or movement. Am I skewing? Am I looking over here and moving that way? Am I turning improperly? Stuff like that. All right. So that's the preview, and it's handy. It really is. It's handy. And there's a couple different ways that you can actually preview your animation before you commit to rendering out this full Monty here, which could take you hours or days. So what you want to do is use all the methodology that is at your disposal to preview in a smaller file and a lower resolution that will be created in less time, so that you get your animation movement correct so that you don't have to wait for the full animation at the full resolution to be created and laid down on your hard drive, only for you to fire up your video editor and go over there and take a look, and it's just not right. You want to preview low resolution, low quality as much as you can before you commit to rendering out the full animation. All right, so we'll pick this up in the next session. We'll talk about some of these buttons down in here. Okay, I'll see you there.